welcome to Roundtable Live for July 21st, 2017. I'm BaerTaffy, joined by MathasGames, RockLeeSmile, Northernlion, and joining us, very special guests all the way from Australia, it's Team Cherry, Ari Gibson, William Pellin. Welcome, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. Oh, got him muted again. Shoot, hold on. That's my bad. There we go. Okay, we're fixed. Welcome, guys.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
Good to have you. Team Cherry, of course, developers of, I think widely praised and, beloved by our entire group, Hollow Knight. Just awesome. Thank you guys for joining us. We are big fans here, and I'm sure you guys have heard the praise heard around the indie gaming scene. So thank you for joining us, and we're looking forward to talking to you about the game, talking to you about your projects and what you got moving forward, too, because this is, of course, well-timed as well, given the upcoming release of Hollow Knight's new free content, right?
It is, yeah, perfectly timed.
Yeah, we've got it happening August 3rd.
Which is a very slight delay, we should say. Was meant to be July, and
a video game delay. You don't say.
Unheard of.
I know. Look, this is our MO at this stage. You just have to tack another week on the end of everything we claim, and then
times 2 plus 1 week.
Right.
Yeah.
Time period that we estimate.
The golden formula.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and just dive right into it. This is kind of tying into one of the first questions I've had about your process developing the game. So starting off, I know you guys had the Kickstarter, of course, and we'll just talk to me about choosing Kickstarter, kind of like the beginning stages of how you wanted to get the project going.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we started working on it as like a kind of like a semi game jam game that we actually missed the actual jam period for it. It was was it a Ludum Dare or the other one?
I think it was a Ludum Dare.
Yeah.
The theme was Beneath the Surface, which is probably pretty evident in the final game.
Right. Yeah. We're going to cite you guys in the future, by the way, for the official pronunciation of that game jam, Ludum Dare.
Is that right?
We don't
That's
know.
all I've been saying Ludum Dare. I got raked over the coals for like a year until I started saying Ludum Dare, and then people stopped.
All right.
So, and then I eventually just started saying LD because I didn't want to get into
it. Yeah, because we've done some game jams, and then I think I said I was going to give this one a miss because I didn't have time. But then Ari rang me up really excited when they announced the theme that it was Beneath the Surface.
Yeah,
and so it was a really good theme. So we missed the actual jam, but we started working on something. And we already had we just don't rip the sprite from like another game jam.
Yeah, it sounds really callous, but yeah, the characters just ripped out and I added some jump frames.
It's the exact same walk frames, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, maybe clean up a bit. Anyway, so yeah, we worked on it for from June or July 2014, just kind of doing a sort of prototype-ish version. I mean, it wasn't meant to be a prototype at the time, but we're just it was only going to be like a 2-hour game project. But towards the end of the year, we started talking about the potential for taking it to Kickstarter and expanding it a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a common story, but we just had our ambitions for the game sort of swelled beyond what we were making, so we sort of had to do something, and then Kickstarter was the best option available.
Yeah, we weren't sure whether we should wait until the next year or not, because it was at the end of November that it started.
Maybe.
I can't remember. It was really late. It was a really historically bad period for Kickstarters.
Yeah. So did you give a lot of consideration then to the time of year and obviously you guys had looked a little bit into the history of the Kickstarters that have been going at that time too.
Yeah, I'd spent $1,000 on Kickstarters in the last 2 years before that. So just because I just love it. I actually just like reading the little updates more than I even like receiving the things.
That's awesome.
You get that full narrative of productions and sometimes failures, but not usually. Normally
just gifs of work in progress stuff.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Now I fund things that look like they're gonna fail just because
I got a list of those if you need. I'll email it.
We decided just to do it. We didn't want to wait until the next year, so we just came up with some that we thought we could get, and then prepped for a couple of weeks or something of getting material together. So pre doing updates and art and stuff, and getting a trailer ready. But also during the actual Kickstarter, we were sort of working constantly the whole time, like making like video, like making new content and stuff so that we could show it off, like fleshing the whole thing out a bit.
Right.
Like, we added like a new boss during the Kickstarter so that we show it, like the Morlek, I think.
Yeah, that might be true. Yeah. It was also still, even at that stage, it was a much smaller game. It sort of became a large game over 2 years of development because we can't say no to any idea that we come up with.
Actually, I was going to ask about that because it seems like it's so bizarre that it was conceived of as kind of like this progeny of a game jam thing, because one of the things about Hollow Knight that everybody latches onto is how the architecture like loops back around within itself, and you can open up these kind of cool shortcuts and stuff that allow you to make the world more interconnected than it might seem like originally. And like, when did that come up in the development process? Because it seems like to even conceive of doing that in 48 hours is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it was never going to be, because we missed like the original 48-hour period. We were like, I don't know, we'll spend like a month maybe at the start or something, do something quick, and then it ballooned out from there. It was like, we just had, the idea was that you had like the middle area, and then you had 3 areas around it. So, which is why the original area is called Crossroads in the final game. And it's just going to have like Fungus Land, Rain Land, Bone Land, or whatever. And there's just going to be like one boss in each. And then the game, like if you look at the map of the game, it kind of like just grew out from that first area. So we just get like stuff onto the side. Or if there's like a little crack between areas, like start filling it in with bits and pieces, which is why like, and then whenever we saw like 2 areas like rubbing up against each other, you like chisel out a little like a corridor between them and stuff like that. And that's, it just, it was all kind of organic in that way, I guess.
In the amount of time that you'd been developing it, I was still expecting it to be like the 3 areas past the crossroads. So I was totally shocked at the scope of the game. I thought it was going to be like maybe a 4-hour game. And then it was like, no, this is like 25 hours.
Given the origin story, that doesn't really, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of started out that way, and then it sounds like you guys just built off organically from that point.
Absolutely. Or particularly the stuff in the, to the lower reaches of the map and to the real, like the edges was just us coming up with more ideas and having more content that we'd kind of conceived and partially created, and we just needed places to put all this stuff. So World had to build around it. So we had, a Colosseum, and we had
Big
Beehive and all this, all these bits. And
so we're like, we're gonna need to make another area to put these into. Like Kingdom's Edge exists.
That's great.
Yeah, there was no design document for this game.
We've got like some old map sketches and stuff, but a lot of the design document stuff is just like written notes that we wrote and then never saw again.
Sure.
I lost it.
So I want to dial back the wheel of time a little bit. Let me go prior to Hollow Knight here. I just want to hear a little bit about each of you guys' individual history with not just games, but with whatever you've been doing. I know. I'm sorry, you're going to have to let me consult my notes here. It's Ari, I believe. You're the one that you have the animation studio, Mechanical Apple, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of animation stuff for years, actually. Maybe for 10 years before this.
Wow.
So I worked for another company, was an art director, then a director there. We did a lot of game stuff, but it was mostly, like all those like cutscenes, all like PlayStation 2 stuff, then PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, that kind of era. Don't think anything exciting. Think things like Transformers 2, the movie, and Avatar, The Last Airbender, the movie.
Oh, the good one.
So yeah, lots of that kind of stuff, and then all the other ads and whatnot. And then I moved on from that. I did Mechanical Apple, which is with another collaborator, Jason, who and we did like 2D, specifically just 2D traditional animation, which is the same technique that we use in Hollow Knight.
Right.
And did that again. It was for sometimes games, but like mostly again just little cutscene stuff, and then music videos, films, ads, and stuff for television, all that kind of jam. And then now we're here.
Yeah.
William had a slightly different path.
William, please.
I mean, I wasn't really doing anything related. I was doing web design for a bit before this, and then before that, I was studying web design at TAFE. And before that, I was like a data analyst or something at Optus.
Or something.
Yeah. It was. And then
Memory
before
fails
that,
you.
yeah, it was like a sort of slightly vague job. But I mean, the whole time I've always been making games as a hobby and stuff. So I remember like in high school when my friends showed me like Cube Basic, which is like, so you can make games like where you just like typing in like a DOS screen and stuff.
Right.
And then like playing around with stuff like RPG Maker. And then I taught myself how to like make games in Flash. So that's when I started learning coding, stuff like that. So before apart from Hollow Knight, my one released game is a Flash game on Newgrounds, and you're a fish and you swim around, and if you touch the wall you die instantly.
Oh, we need a title.
It's called Return to Booty Grotto.
Return to Booty Grotto.
Yeah, well, the first game was called Booty Grotto because Brad had made that in Flash, and then I was like, because his dad had like a really cool screen that you could draw on, whatever it's called, Cintiq or whatever. I was like, yeah, this is cool. I'll do the art, and you can make the game, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
He never got around to it, so I had to learn how to actually make the game.
Oh man.
So yeah, anyway.
The only places I can find this now are going to require 2 minutes of advertisements before I can proceed.
Yes.
So, no live.
Hopefully you see some of that.
0.01 cents. And once I finally get to $1,000 ad revenue in 2056,
That'll pay out eventually, right?
Is that the bottom line?
They'll take their
$1,000.
60%.
go cash that check.
Hell yeah.
And this whole thing will have been worth it.
So that's the individual origin story. Then so now we need the where did you meet? We need how did Team Cherry come together?
Speed dating for game designers.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What's the quick version was we knew each other through mutual friends
Like years and years ago.
years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then William sent me a demo, which maybe is also available on Newgrounds, of
maybe.
another kind of Flash game, not Flash, Stencil, which is similar to like a game maker kind of engine, like a small game engine.
Was that what Hollow Knight started on? I think I remember reading something about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's a kind of a natural progression from William was made this game, which is called Lulander. And he had a demo of 3 levels.
It's like a really simple platform game that I was making.
Yeah, and so
which was cannibalized a lot to make the character from Hollow Knight actually, like the controls. And
Yeah. And I saw that and was like, well, I played that because he sent it to me, and I thought maybe we should do some game jams as like a kind of testing whether we could create something, and then that worked all right. We made 2 other games.
Yeah, I thought we were just doing it for fun.
Oh no, it was all like long planning.
Revelatory moment here.
Yeah. Yeah, so they worked out. The first one was called Hungry Night, which was the one that used the same sprites that became the Hollow Knight. The second one was called Tomb Cat, which is not a fantastic name, but was done in 72 hours.
Come up with in the time.
Yeah.
Hey, I should say as well, in Hungry Night, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but like the basic idea, the theme was, I think it was Lunadari again, was like 10 seconds was the theme. The basic idea was that you had to eat fruit every 10 seconds, otherwise you'd die. And the fruit was like these little cherries. So when they asked us what our team name was, we just said Team Cherry.
Oh,
there you go. Yeah. True.
I've never met
games.
any developer or YouTuber whose like name comes from anything other than, this kind of sounded neat. And that was the end of it.
It's like in high school when you do a group project, they ask for a team name, so you just take like all your initials and arrange them in a pattern that makes sense.
There you go. Works for me.
Chat is loving Tomb Cat right now, by the way.
Oh, William, I hope you don't take this to heart too much, but have you seen Newgrounds has not treated Hungry Night nicely.
I think it's because when I originally posted it, it had a really good score, and then I had to repost it because I thought it was broken or something, and then like people were judging it not as a jam game, but like they were just Like, it doesn't like in the
hold up
context
out
of
of
it being a game jam. It's not okay.
They were judging it as a free piece of media instead of a free piece of media.
It's all about context, right?
Yeah. That's great.
0.6 is that right?
I wasn't going to give you the specifics or anything.
Don't want to drag it down.
When someone in the Discord was like, William, 0.6, what's going on? We could go lower.
Well, you got a lot better reviews to show them at this point, right? You're feeling better now, I imagine.
Bad progression. You can look at like the chart of 0.6 to
Right.
whatever it is.
Awesome. Of course, chat, by the way, just so you know, we'll be fielding some questions from you guys later on in the show as we're talking more and more to Team Cherry here. So we've gotten into your individual histories. Well, I did want to ask you as well. We got into your work history, but I do want to know a little bit more about your gaming history as well. I know, William, you have listed here one of your first loves was Zelda 2, which makes a lot of sense given the origins.
That surprises me, actually.
Yeah?
Zelda 2 is one of my least favorites, personally.
Really? Zelda 2 gets undue hate. That game is good. It did a lot of interesting things.
I guess it innovated.
There is.
What was that, William?
Zelda 2 is the best Metroidvania.
Whoa. Big words.
Interesting.
You got to defend that position.
I'm going to end up having to replay it just on you saying that.
He's just being inflammatory.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I do that a lot.
I mean, it helped that I was a kid, obviously, and plus games were really new back then, so there was like a really good combination of it being like a really mystical kind of, like, you had no idea how big this world actually was. Like, all the conventions of games kind of didn't exist so much, so like it kind of felt like at any point something really weird was going to happen, and it did sometimes. And there's like a bunch of like really weird items that you could get and spells and stuff. It was cool.
I thought it was an amazing game. It also had
I actually really like it. It still holds up, I think.
it had an amazing box which went a long way, and a silver cartridge which was very like enticing at the time when you're in the video store renting a game.
It's true.
But it was also like it had like a big sprite, like the character was quite present.
Oh yeah, it was like
It was sort of like stood out, had a world map and towns.
Yeah, the world map
and
had lots of little secrets in it, like little caves and little like one scene forest bits that you could go into.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's
It felt like an adventure. That's the big thing. And that's like the big thing that we both took from a lot of those older games, like Fact Xanadu or Far Xanadu or whatever it's called. It was like just felt like a weird, long, big adventure.
Yeah, well, I got to ask you about what is it, Far Xanadu?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think that came out in the US. Apparently.
Really?
Well, maybe not.
game.
But in Europe and Australia, it was huge, and it was
extremely good.
Yeah, it was the first thing I ever rented from a video store, and continued to many times over. It's like a Falcom, like they have this Xanadu series. They still make them. It's actually
Really?
Famicom Xanadu, hence Xanadu.
Yeah.
But now they make them, and I think they look like Persona games or something.
RPG, right? I don't think they ever, because I got excited because I saw there was like all these other games in like the series, but none of them actually looked like.
Oh, it was actually released in North America, 89.
Okay, cool.
Maybe
And it even made it to the Virtual Console.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, maybe it was just in plentiful supply in our region. But it was cool. It had it kind of was one of those first games. Like, it was a early Nintendo game, but it had like an attempt at an art style and an atmosphere. It had like a color palette that was distinct, and it had cool music. So
It had really, really good music. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was like the whole world was like a big tree. So you started at the bottom, you're going around like the roots, and there's like villages in the roots, and then start going up the trunk, and then go into like a weird misty world, and then go into like the branches and stuff. It's cool.
yeah, and hard,
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
like all the games from that era.
Right.
It had like really like weirdly brutal stuff that old NES games had that don't happen anymore. Whereas like in the Mist world, there'd be like mini dungeons and stuff, but some of them would just have nothing in them. Like, you'd just get to the end and like that, it was just a trick.
Well, that was an experience.
It's like the weird stuff like that doesn't fly at all today, but like it kind of, it's annoying, but it kind of also like makes it feel more like an adventure in a way, because it's not like you just pick a path and you're going to be rewarded no matter where you go.
Right.
Weird.
Yeah, and of course, I think it's easy to see inspirations drawn there in Hollow Knight as well. The rewarding your exploration and whatnot. Was there other stuff that you could, pretty safely say you drew a lot of inspiration from, things maybe you were even playing during the development of the game that might have, steered you one way or the other?
Well, we like to say that we explicitly took from Metroid, the original Metroid.
Yeah.
And we obviously, we did think a lot about that as we were making it.
Yeah, particularly obviously in terms of like structure, and the way you kind of like get funneled through zones, and then they open back up after getting a power up, that type of thing.
Yeah, there's an element of Mega Man X in the kind of the control system.
Yeah, the way your guy has like no inertia and has like a nice jump and a dash and stuff. I mean,
I like that. That goes over really well for me.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, like we explicitly like said we'd like start with like a Mega Man X / Mega Man 0 type of thing.
Yeah, so that worked. And then maybe the boss, Mega Man X, or all the Mega Mans have that nicely, like they have like really characterful bosses with cool names.
Right.
Stuff like that. I think that probably comes through there as well, a little bit.
Lots of probably like bits and pieces, like lots of Zelda. I played through a lot, that nice feeling of going around like talking to weirdos and stuff. And
I'm actually curious, because I've heard a ton of people, including all of us, mention, did Dark Souls play any inspiration to the development or design of the game at all?
I hadn't
because
played
this is
Dark Souls when I started. I played some of the first one, and then I got up to that fatty fight, that one fat guy, and then his friend. And then
Fatty and his friend, or the other Fatty?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did go back and finish it after the game, but then
the
stuff after that was not as good as the lead up to that. I played Dark Souls 3 recently as well. Yeah.
I had played them all, I should say, and liked them a lot. And I was one of those people that, I'm sure a lot of you guys are the same, played Demon Souls at that time when, we were importing it from Hong Kong or wherever we were getting it from, and it had English in it, and it was this strange, unknown game. And that was really interesting at the time, because it was a bit like what William was mentioning before with Zelda 2, where you had a game where you had a sense of, like, you didn't know the edges of it, you didn't know the boundaries of the systems, and you didn't the rules of the world. And at the time, that was like seriously refreshing versus what was around it. And I think a lot of people would say Hollow Knight has the Souls quality, and I think that's fair enough. But also, the Souls games have those qualities from the older games,
right?
And it's much easier. Like, I mentioned it on another podcast we did, but I almost think it's like a vocab issue where you have a new generation of people who haven't played Nintendo games. They haven't played those early games. So they don't have the touchstones like Zelda 2 to talk about, and it's much easier just to say like Souls as a catch-all and have as a modern game that sort of emphasizes all of those qualities of the unknown and discovery and challenge and overcoming challenge to access new areas.
Yeah. No, I agree with that analysis. Definitely. It's very interesting, too, because I think we were all fairly convinced that there were a lot of Souls inspirations, and it very well could be just due to the fact that, like you said, we all just sort of draw from that modern comparison quite a bit.
There is one explicit one, which I'm hesitant to mention it, but I will mention it. And the Soul system is, an element of that is the Bloodborne health regain system, which is when you hit an enemy in Bloodborne, you regain a bit of health.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a useless system in that game, really, I think, because like all of those games, it's better to just get the hell out of the way and
just don't fight anything.
But and then beat them up later. But there's a parallel there with our soul system, which is just that you hit and you stock the soul that you can then use to heal at your own rate.
Right.
I mean, for me, it was the only two parts that struck me as Soulsy in particular is the way the world fits together, but that I can see that that's like convergent evolution from other games that came earlier, but also the corpse mechanic of getting back to where your dead body is in order to get some currency back. That's the only place that I saw it explicitly.
That's the other thing with that is like, because yeah, I remember thinking that idea was pretty interesting. Dark Souls and Ari and I talked about it. We had some it was during the Kickstarter. We had like an interview with Mr. I Won't Forget, I think, about the game, and he asked us what happens when you die explicitly, and we were like, you'll have to find out. And then after the call, we were like, all right, what does happen?
How often did that happen through the course of development?
And we were talking, because like his head comes. I'd done the dying animation, his head comes off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, okay, what if you like crack his head open and like money comes out that you lost when you died? And then we started talking about, wouldn't it be funny if like the head attacked you? What if it's like a ghost and the ghost attacks you?
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea of the shade came from that.
And then probably a lot of the narrative came from the shade.
Yeah. A lot of the lore or like the setting stuff comes from us coming up with mechanics or just kind of like ideas that we wanted to implement. Then kind of like visualizing that in a way that seems consistent with the world, and then that kind of then becomes part of the lore and stuff.
So are you kind of saying then like the lore, the narrative maybe sort of didn't exist prior to the game being complete, or did it kind of just develop along the way?
Like the world, like the idea of the world, and it being this long dead bug kingdom was always there, and the basic idea of the story, which was like at the very start, like I said, there were 3 areas, and towards the end of the game now you go and defeat these 3 dreamers who aren't boss fights, but originally there was just going to be like one repeated boss fight. So the game was, there's some kind of like plague that's killed this area, you got to fight these 3 dreamers to unlock the final door, and then go in and face the cause of the plague, which was vague at the start.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, like that core was always there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the same core that's there now. So then we just like fleshed out.
Yeah, it's also like a ridiculously simple core. Beat 3 bosses.
Yeah.
Fight a final boss. It's like classic video game.
Right.
Thrust, but it kind of gave us like that a framework to pin a lot of things on, and have a lot of those weird little tangents of like strange characters going about their own little stories.
Yeah, and again, it's like the map where there's gaps, you start to just fill it in because something makes sense, or like 2 characters or 2 concepts seem like close to each other, so you start to write things in a way that suggests they may be linked or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, eventually, like probably if you have too much lore up front, you run into that issue where you get bound by the narrative. You like get locked in to certain things, and you can't make the gameplay decisions that you want to be able to make because it doesn't fit with the story that you're trying to craft. So we just let everything kind of come together gradually, and solidify right near the end there, which hopefully makes it all feel a bit cohesive and makes the mechanics and the world feel like they fit with the story of the world.
Yeah, I imagine that may have contributed to a little bit of extra stress, not knowing exactly where to proceed every single time, right?
Kind of. I mean, we already knew. We always like I said, we had that core, so we always knew the end point of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was more like, there were questions of why is this character attacking you, and then why they're your friend later on. That type of stuff. That was like we'd worked out that was going to happen, and then we're like, we'll write why.
That also keeps it fun as well, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
if you're making a game,
that was actually the better way to do it.
if you're doing 2 years of development, it would be so dull to have everything planned out in advance,
Right.
and then just like be
Just
production lining this bloody thing. You want to be like, if you want to be able to come up with funny or cool ideas midway through and go like, yeah, we can put that in because we've left all these gaps that need to be filled anyway.
Yeah.
And that kind of keeps it
One of the
interesting.
reasons it does balloon out is because that desire to keep adding new stuff is always there.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
gotta come up with something, and then it fits, so you can't not make it.
The bit that happened like post ending, like the true completion ending, was that part of the initial plan for the game, or did that sort of evolve after you finished it? Because I thought, speaking to what you mentioned about exploration, that was probably the most magical part, when I realized there was still all this extra stuff that was actually really hidden.
Yeah, cool. The White Palace was always that original plan I said 3 areas, the White Palace was always like the optional area we were going to add. And then, we did say there was going to be like an additional ending or a different ending if you completed it or something.
Yeah, maybe we just talked about it. We talked about it because it
cool
felt
anyway.
right, and it's
Yeah.
very like a Castlevania. If you guys have
Yes.
played a lot, a lot of the Igavania style, like you can the Symphony of the Night, you can get halfway through and get the kind of standard ending, or go through and do your upside down castle and all that business.
I think we'd also talked about like the ending and what was actually going to happen. There was like a couple of different ideas, and then we said it would be best if there's like actually a way for the player to, rather than just like picking one of these endings and that's it, like the player can do either one. We're talking about that. So then that kind of got fleshed out, and like that second ending got attached to a lot of the optional content that we had.
Yeah.
Cool.
How much did end up on the cutting room floor? I'm curious.
Not heaps. We used most of what we made. There's like a big area that didn't make it in.
Was it the City of Bones?
Yeah, the Bone Forest.
Yeah, sorry, Bone Forest.
Yeah.
I was really hoping that would be in the DLC. Is it not?
Spoilers.
If you feel like saying so.
Either way.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but that, I mean, by the time we cut it, it wasn't that fleshed out or anything. So we hadn't made enemies or anything for it. And I think pretty much like every enemy and boss that we conceived and like that went anywhere past like sketches, that once you already created art for it, we used it. No, actually, there's a couple of enemies that we didn't use. Maybe that weird charging thing with a big nose.
Yeah, that never really had an area anyway.
Yeah.
There were a lot of enemies that ended up on the cutting room. Look, yeah, lots of sprite, just like the animation, like little other mages and little some of the bosses that I can't mention for certain reasons.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. So like little bits and pieces, but like we never got to a point with anything that we were making that we said we had to cut it because we tried to implement it and it just didn't work. Most of it was just like we've come up with a few ideas. These are the ones we're keeping. These are the ones we can fit. So like anything that we didn't use, at least apart from maybe Bone Forest, wasn't like we didn't have too much time spent on it.
Ultimately, we also cut. I mean, it was a pretty large area, but we cut it one just so we didn't kill ourselves. But making the thing, but it was also there's also like probably like an exhaustion point for players because part of a Metroid game is there's this big ask, which is that the player invests in like learning the whole world. Like they have to learn like the layout. They have to kind of you end up just committing so much of it to memory that the more you add on, the more like the more of an expectation of what a player has to carry around in their head, and potentially like one other massive area just pushed it too far for what we were expecting people to remember.
Sure.
We did add a few smaller areas after that, but it's better that way rather than having one extra huge area at the end. It's better to have like an ancient basin, and the Kingdom's Edge ended up being pretty big.
It's like simpler. Like
yeah. Whereas like Bone Forest was like a big like labyrinthine thing where like you had to go through, curl through, get this power up, get double jump because that's where it used to be, go through, light these torches, open up a gate, and all this stuff. And it was like the biggest area as well. So
cut the biggest area, man.
We were going to die if we tried to do it. Seriously, we would have just dropped. It wouldn't have been healthy.
Yeah,
we wouldn't be here today talking to you.
Good. All right, you made the right decision.
So much better.
Well, I don't know if you caught the little smirk from this one up above me here, but
I'm not gonna sit here and just.
Come on, I wanna have this conversation because I know you've got a few things to talk about with the White Palace.
What are you talking about?
With the White Palace.
I am one of the minority that just didn't like the White Palace. Do I really want to sit here and sit to the face of the developers like, I hate
I know
this
why you didn't do that. That's not what I'm asking.
No, I just for whatever reason the White Palace didn't gel with me. I think we talked about it a little bit here. Not due to it being like poorly. It's weird because like it was a difficulty spike out of a game that had a nice like curve that like it got tough, but you learned and you mastered it and you moved on. And then the White Palace came and it just beat you into the ground over and over again, which doesn't bother me. But I guess the parts that with the White Palace that bother me the most, and I know you had some trouble with it as well, Bear, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm all alone, is that there were a lot of like unseeable deaths that hit you. And I don't know, White Palace out of the entire game, which I adored, was the part that I think would have loved to never do again.
So I want to hear like about like what made that come to be, and like whether or not it had different iterations, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I did it in 4 days when we were like cramming to get everything else done. No, I think that we have an issue. Like we agreed, like there's one element with the game, which is that it's really open, right? Which means, unlike a traditional Metroid game, we soft gated a lot of the areas, as in like potentially you can get through almost the entire world without a lot of the powers. So we couldn't guarantee in a lot of instances that you would have double jump and you would have super dash, etc., etc. What it means is, and then the White Palace was one of the few areas that we could, we like hard set. Yes, we expect players to have these abilities.
The whole set, and then you can just go ape.
So I think, but I do think perhaps what happens as a result for some players is you get in there and then you hit the full potential of what all of those, that complex platforming can be. But there are no other areas. Yeah, there isn't that kind of mid-tier area.
A couple of little ones, but they're not really the same.
No, so the world itself is kind of largely devoid of that sort of difficult platforming style. And that, and definitely that makes it a harder.
In any case, even for people who end up liking it, it's like a.
Yeah.
For the people who I like, who would shout at me in the comments and tell me that this is the reason I'm wrong, a lot of the way they would get through it and the way I had to get through it is like the cheesy trinket setup or charm setup where like I basically gave myself infinite health for however long I needed it. And that was the only way I could get through it. Like I really wanted to get through it like, I don't want to say the right way, but like the way I wanted to, which was like my charm setup and get through it. But I had to cave at some point, but like, I just need to put on the charms that give me infinite health.
Funny enough, I feel like that's in a way its own reward, figuring out that that's a thing you can do. It's sort of like testing you to realize that those options exist. So, I mean, personally, I'm a huge fan of really difficult platforming. I enjoyed White Palace. It still kicked my ass a little bit, but I had a good time with it. And I get that it's sort of the culmination of all the powers put together. I'm glad it's there, but I also get why some people are super frustrated with it.
We should say that there are two elements. There are two, like we get emails, and there are two emails that we get quite commonly. One is that fucking White Palace, get rid of it. You're killing me. And then the other one is at the same frequency is that fucking gold Coliseum, which is
the Coliseum. I tried that thing twice, and I was like, "This is optional." I'm done.
The Coliseum 3 was the thing that killed me.
That makes people angry at the White Palace in a way is that it's like there's a lot of stuff behind it.
That's
which
true.
is whereas like the Trial of the Fools is like explicitly you can finish it if you want, but it's just for the fun of it. It's funny. There is like a divide between people who hated White Palace and people who hated the Trial of the Fools.
It does often seem like the people who people seem to swing one way or the other normally. Like either they hate that
some
trial,
people like both, it's mainly
like some people can't stand the ridiculous combat challenge. Some people can't stand the ridiculous platforming challenge. And
it's cool as well. I was saying to Ari because I made that Trial of Fools and Ari made the White Palace, so it's like we've each made our mark.
That's great.
Hate the game.
Yeah.
That's it.
we don't regret either. We're quite glad that they're in there and in the state that they are. But they're definitely
it's about like the memory of the game, right? Like the making those kind of like really harsh moments.
Mathas, how did you feel?
What's up? No, go ahead. What's up?
How did you feel about Trial of Fools, Mathas? Because I really didn't like it, but I liked White Palace, so I'm just curious if you're the other way.
No, I actually didn't like the Trial of Fools either, but like I guess I fall into the people who are like, well, it's optional, so it doesn't bother me that much. Like this is an optional, whoop me over and over again. I'm doing this to myself. Where White Palace was, I wanted that ending and I wanted to do it. And we sat here forever, and I did a whole video just kind of like reviewing the game and dissecting why I despised the White Palace for what it was, because I wanted to love it. But I don't want to sit here and tell you why your design is wrong. Because
that's why we're doing the show, right?
Is that what we're here for? Oh, all right. So here's what I loved and hated about your game. But I mean, it's overall like looking at what I consider Hollow Knight like a modern masterpiece. Like it's such a small blemish on the game. And I mean, Ryan would say something, but he didn't finish it, so it's fine.
Apparently, you can't just really like a game anymore. You have to
can't get the true ending.
You have to finish it. Every game you have to finish 100%, or you don't like it. And
I said before the show started, if anybody can get Ryan to do the true ending, it's going to be the developers, or you're all out of luck and you're never going to get it.
I go right to the source here, man.
I'll do you a drawing of the Hollow Knight and we'll sign it and we'll send it to you. I'll make it. It'll be like a little smaller than A4.
Right. Now
I'll do it 5 times for that instead.
You're not getting me to play the true ending, but you're making me feel a lot worse about not doing the true ending. So
we'll donate $5.
Sweet money. Now you know how to get to a YouTuber's heart.
Some kid, some orphanage could really do with it.
Oh no!
Charity donation in order to get Ryan to do.
You can't give him money. You got to give him Twitch bits.
No, he said they're going to give it to a charity, man.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. That's better.
We'll give all of our Twitch bits to charity of your.
Good.
This is gotcha journalism, and I don't respect it. I'm being ambushed, and
so I had just another general question about the development cycle. I always imagine that there's parts of making games like this that I wouldn't even suspect are difficult. Was there anything that you guys were caught off guard by that you didn't realize was going to be a difficult process, or anything that you were just surprised how long it took?
UIs and menu. I kind of always had that feeling that they'd be annoying. And then maybe it just feels longer to me because they're not as fun to put together. But that stuff takes a while to come together.
There's like one thing that surprises me constantly, and it's that just because something works, it doesn't mean that it's going to keep working. So like, we'll have things that work fine for like a year of development, and then they just break. And they just break because there's all these other systems built on top of it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so like everything feels like this giant wobbly house of cards, and you just watch it wobbling all the time, and you're like, shit, if that thing falls.
Yeah, the thing is, I think it's one thing, obviously, and then you fix one thing in like a 20, 30-hour game, and you have to play through it all again just to make sure it hasn't destroyed, like, some worm in the top left corner.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of a follow-up question I had too. Of course, you guys are primarily a 2-man team. I know you brought on a couple more folks to help with the.
I was gonna say, if you need more, we have a Unity certified developer right here.
Why do I even show up to the show? I'm just being called out left, right, and center.
It's fun.
I should say we were a 3-man team during Hollow Knight.
Oh,
We had
okay.
Dave working with us as well.
Right.
And moved on.
He did complex things that we didn't understand.
Yeah, like a lot of like foundational stuff, like save systems and achievements and Steam stuff.
But with
Data solutions.
With that in mind, though, I imagine, like you said, like you got to play through the game to be able to test it to make sure that things are working out. So, with bigger companies, QA is like an entire department. They've got people committed to playing the game all the time. I imagine you don't have that luxury.
No, it was us, like me and Ari.
Yeah.
And like a few, Matt left, obviously, did a lot of testing, and like a few friends, and like a few people we met, some like people from Indie Fund and stuff. I think by the time the game released, maybe like 6 or 7 people had played it through to completion.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, that's crazy.
yeah, and then the next day, like, we had like thousands of people playing it and a whole new bunch of bugs and stuff. But, yeah, so it was like it was a small operation until we released.
Right.
It seems like it's one of those things that gets better. Like now we have, we have a really active Discord for Hollow Knight, which isn't ours. Someone else set it up, but and we've been able to talk to those guys a lot for some of the testing, for the further testing.
Yeah, there's a lot of
bring all those
community
guys
there
on,
now as
and they
well.
understand the game sometimes better than we do. So
Yeah, I get like
really
questions, and they're like, "Hey, why does this enemy have like 1 less HP in this room than it does in the other, or something?" It's like something I did like 2 years ago. And they're like, how do the multipliers for the different charms for your attack damage stack? And like we calculate it, and it's like this, but there's a slight discrepancy, and I have to like go back through everything I've made and like work out why does it work that way.
Nice.
But it's good, yeah, to have that like that community support on hand now. So like for Hidden Dreams, so we've like we've got like a bunch of like people in the community that we brought in that are really good at like breaking stuff and also know the game inside out. So it's.
So these are just like community members that have been playing the game a hell of a lot and just decided to help you out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We approached a few of them.
Some of them didn't decide. We said, you are helping us.
It's the way to go.
Some of them have been, because a lot of them have been helping with translations and stuff as well.
Yeah.
So like we went into the Discord, we said, who speaks German, who speaks Spanish, that type of thing. So, they've been coming in and helping with the new content and stuff like that.
So
do you guys get to be speedrunners after testing so much? Did you find paths through the game you didn't expect?
We didn't find many. We found the ones we knew about that we made. There's a bunch of that we didn't know about. We watched at Summer Games Done Quick.
Yeah.
Oro did when the speedrunners did like a speed run, and there's like a few things in there that we didn't even know you could do.
Nice.
It's cool. Yeah, it's like an any %. So he just like tore through it in like 40 something minutes. That was.
It's
cool.
wild, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't actually played it through start to finish properly for like, I don't know, months and months. Maybe since before release.
Yeah.
Do you ever want to again?
Play it every day in a sense, but
Yeah.
played it from start to finish.
To be fair, I can also count on one hand the amount of days I've taken off since release. So we haven't had a lot of time to be playing.
Damn.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I've almost felt like maybe I should before this next content release, but now that we've got like people playing it, and they're better at playing through it than me anyway, and they're better at like scouring the world for like errors.
Is that a weird feeling? They're better than you at it?
No, not really.
No?
I mean, I'm not like I'm that good at games. I'm not alright at games, and I'm good at this one because I made it.
There's always
Right.
someone better.
Yeah,
It's good. It's good to have those people. I mean, they're crazy, but you need them.
I'll just change the game in subtle ways that only I know, just so that
Can you guys talk a little bit about, you mentioned it briefly, talk a little bit about just like the release day whirlwind, because I imagine it's different for every team, and again, not to harp on it, but with you guys being a small group, I imagine it's, just hyper concentrated on a few folks too.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I was asleep.
Yeah, we released like our time.
Just for the launch. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he was skimping. Like it had been like a long week of like, because we wanted to get like the final build ready a week in advance at least, which seemed like the prudent thing to do. But then every single day, something else broke, and there's some like weird new drama. So, but then by shortly before release, it was pretty solid. So yeah, I was here in the office, and Leth was kind of like looking after it and had like a countdown stream going, and I was in the office, and when it ticked over and people started buying it, and that was good. And then it was 2 weeks of bug fixes and optimizations.
Which is probably like the standard for every independent.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's the thing. Like, I mean, like you said, we're a small team, and we can only test so much. And even if we'd like delayed the game by like a month or something, we still wouldn't have found, 50% of the bugs that occurred in the first day after release, just because suddenly you've got like thousands of people smashing it and playing it like, in hundreds of different ways.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like there's no like big end point. I mean, it just kind of kept going.
It kept going. Then we did take 2 days off and we played Zelda.
Oh yeah.
And I played that Nier game. That was alright. Yeah.
So like a samurai thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was probably the most defined end of the launch craze. Yeah.
Great. So, chat, go ahead and feel free to start sending in some questions here, and we'll all peruse and pick out some of our favorites. You guys do that too, if you could, please. I'll ask you live on the show.
I saw one that I'd like to throw out there.
Sure.
Somebody in chat had asked, what was the design decision behind having recoil on all the hits? Was that something you guys wanted right in the beginning to add difficulty? What was the thought process behind that?
No, it's related
like
to
the feel of it.
It's like the feel. Yeah.
Just it feels good.
It's about like it's part of like a larger thing, which is about your like presence in the world. So like we just made a lot of decisions, as many as we possibly could, to like enforce the idea that you like physically exist in the space. And one of those things is the recoil on enemies, the fact that you get hit back. But it's also the thing that like, which was also added like, but makes a huge difference, is like the slashing near a wall has a recoil as well. Part of that I mean, part of that recoil thing was I've said this before, but there's this game called Lords of the Fallen. It's like a weird Dark Souls like.
Yeah. That was just a few years ago, right?
For free. Yeah, a few years ago.
Yeah.
It might be like a European studio. Came out for free on PlayStation Plus, or not free, but whatever, subscription. So I played it for 10 minutes, and I was like, oh yeah, all right, this looks all right. Anyway, I walked into a corridor and I swung my sword, and the sword went straight through the wall. Just played the clean animation, like straight on through, nothing, like butter. Anyway, that happened once, and I turned it off and uninstalled it.
Yeah, it is also like it's also like a consistency thing, because at the very start there was no knockback, not even on the down slash. So you jump, you down slash an enemy, fall through, hit it, which was terrible. So we added like the bounce off the enemy when you down slash it, which is a lot of fun. And then I realized that it was also easy to jump up slash an enemy, and then like keep going into it as well, which is really annoying. So like, all right, well, I guess I should just kick you back. And then once you had those two, and it's like, but you don't get knocked back if you hit them on the left or right. That was like a weird feeling. So I added that, and we played around with it. And I actually, I really prefer it just because it's got like a weighty. Zelda 2 has it as well. You get knocked back and you hit, and it feels really good. Like you jump up, hit it in midair, and you you come back off of it.
Yeah,
and it's like it sells the impact.
You're not just a sprite anymore. You're like a little creature that has weight and inertia, and you can really feel things.
Yeah, it's funny because actually, and I now remember there's another reason we did it, which is funny because like people say maybe they think we added it to make it harder or something. But one of the reasons we added it was because, and this was when you had like a smaller sword slash, and we saw this. We took the game to like Avcon 2015. It was like the first time
just a local convention.
And one thing people did is like they just attacked and kept walking towards an enemy as they attacked, and then eventually just took damage.
Yeah,
they added like a kickback, so they'd attack, get kicked back, attack, get kicked back, and that actually stopped them from just. It taught them a little bit about sort of keeping that distance and stuff as well. So it's like it's a bunch of reasons, and then by the time we put it in and tested it, it felt correct, and like taking it out, we never really considered it because it was like, it made everything. It was solid and correct.
Right. We got a question from the fifth Matt. The sound design in the game is really through the roof in terms of quality and immersion. I'm going to agree with that. Christopher Larkin, I want to give him a shout out too, of course, the composer for all the music.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. He's in there with you.
He's actually here in this city with us, and we'll probably see him at some point this weekend. So we'll
awesome.
Pass that on.
Yeah, please do. And then
he did an amazing job. We slammed him on this thing. It was like we sort of surprised him as well. Maybe we shouldn't say, but we surprised him with the request for all the boss themes really late on. We were like, well, we don't want to say, Chris, we want all of these tracks, so we just started with the tracks. Maybe give us a few unique, kind of generic boss themes.
We kept adding areas as well.
And then we just kept adding and adding and adding. And
he never, it's not like anything ever dipped in quality or anything. It's like towards, every area has like a really nicely thought out kind of theme to it and stuff.
Yeah, and he did the sound design as well, which is obviously. Oh, I mean, sorry, I should say he provided the sounds, and then William did the implementation in game. So a lot of that element of the mixing of the
a little bit, but it's mainly Chris.
Yeah, speaking of the individual flavors too, my wife is a huge fan of the game, and she'll listen to the soundtrack and she can identify the area based on the music within half a second. It's awesome. So yeah, that's cool. Really well done.
The little subtle touches like the stereo positional audio in certain areas, it just elevates it so much higher. I love that stuff.
Nice.
Who came up with the silly language of the bugs?
Whoever was doing the voice at the time.
We had a few words.
Yeah, we wrote down like Ludo, Mia, Bis, that type of thing, like a bunch of words that we kind of just stitched together in different combinations. Although some people we found, because we got just friends and family to do the voices, and some people if you write down made up words, they have real trouble reading it in a natural way. So some people my mum, I just got it to write down her own gibberish. It's
great.
my mum did Queen and stuff, and she just wrote down because we're Greek, she just wrote down half Greek made up words and stuff and work like that.
That's awesome.
So it's a mix.
We've got here, Joe Mount asks, which boss are you most proud of?
Most proud.
Yeah.
I don't know. One of the new ones.
Marketing.
Yeah. Well, it's tricky. Whenever we get asked like, what's our favorite area or enemy, I always kind of like draw a blank. It's kind of hard to say.
Yeah.
I really like Hornet. I think that like stuff comes together there really well. It's really fun to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like the Dung Defender as a character.
I love
it. Me too.
Yeah, and he was also one of the few characters that I remember he took a while to design. Like, well, I mean, sorry, visually.
He was done during the Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, maybe he was actually.
So there's a Kickstarter update with the that has the Dung Defender. So he was like a really early character as well.
Yeah, I remember. Like most of the characters come together pretty like easily, but he just looked so dumb for so long. But yeah, he's cool now.
Yeah, Mantis Lords are cool as well. That came together pretty well from like a pretty simple idea.
Yeah,
and then just built up that had like a lot of levels of. Then they got a village, and then they get like then they bow to, and then
they got a cage.
Yeah, and then their minions bow to and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Marshall wants to know what kind of media influenced the macabre nature of Hollow Knight's levels. What sort of things you drew inspiration from for the design of the artists or the artwork and the levels themselves?
Oh man, this stuff's always so hard. Well, there's kind of like a Victorian-y sort of vibe in the early part, right? Maybe in the city streets.
Like old London.
Oldie
like lampposts.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And obviously a lot of fossils. But the macabre element, I'm not sure. I think maybe a lot of that is that like originally it was kind of, when it was its very first game jam, it was like that monotone blue, sort of like what the Crossroads is now.
Right.
And you use black, lots of black and lots of blue, and things just look like that. Like whether you want to do it, it was just like you use a lot of black, you can hide a lot of things, right? Don't have to do as much work, and people just imagine detail in all the darkness. So
right.
Yeah, a lot of decisions. I mean, not just in the art as well. It's just whatever allowed us to get stuff made as quickly as possible. Like what's the most efficient way? Like it's a lot of the characters are like kind of look simple and have like just it's like a few simple behaviors and stuff.
Generating like I suppose like the look we could like generate quickly and efficiently like a thick atmosphere. So like once you have like a really strong atmosphere, you can it just gives you a good base to work off for the whole thing. And it just feels cool to be in that world. Like it feels more immersive. It's kind of harder to do with like a sunny world, maybe. It's not.
Yeah.
There's less of an inherent mystery in it, so there's less of like a pull maybe into that kind of space. Yeah. Yeah,
makes sense. I'm gonna rephrase your question a little bit sneaky. I think I'll still stay true to the plot though. So it says, was there something after the game release that you guys weren't a fan of? Was there maybe a part of the game that upon putting it out into the world, you maybe realized in retrospect, I wish we'd done this maybe a little differently?
White Palace was too easy.
White Palace.
There were bits that didn't make it. There weren't like any bits that I look back at and say I don't like it. There were things that we wanted to get in that we didn't, which is one of the reasons we've got like these content packs coming up. Like a lot of it, some of it is like new ideas and stuff, but some of it is, that feature is missing, or that. Oh, I shouldn't be too specific.
You gotta be careful.
Sometimes people say things like there's like some stuff that has been omitted. That we have said like it makes sense and we understand why that complaint's there. And so we're working towards, and like there's like a couple of bosses as well, like ideas we had that we couldn't fit in, that we're adding.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm not sure. It feels like a cohesive whole. And we sat on it for 2 years, 2.5 years, really. So
yeah, so I mean, the stuff that we didn't like, we worked on to the point where it was, at least it was fine.
Yeah. Or we dropped. Maybe the Hive could have had one more pass. I think. I don't know what that exactly means, but just it could have either just been. We talked about some stuff. Like it would have been nice to like poke into little rooms and see little guys like living in like weird hexagons and like moving around.
Mm-hmm. We might use that idea later.
Okay. Yeah, just sometimes a bit of like fleshing out.
So maybe unfinished maybe it's like or unpolished maybe like there's like more passes maybe the way to think about the Hive. So in the end we just had like for time reasons we just had to accept that it's just like a mini dungeon, and it's like that's enough for now. But
I got to the part of the chat where everybody's imitating the in-game gibberish. So it's just a bunch of
Papanada.
Yeah, cool.
Oh, man. There's a lot of lore questions here, which is like you got to take that to heart as people really care a lot about this stuff, man. It's awesome.
I have a question.
Yeah.
As the guy who always ends up being the most or the only anti-consumer person on the show, if I am falling on that sword, I guess. When you come out with a game that ends up being like very successful, where does the decision take place whether to release, as you call it, like a content pack as like a small microtransaction versus as free content? And do you feel like speak, I guess, to the idea that developers have like an obligation to maintain and kind of cultivate a garden of content around their game long after release?
Well, I mean, none of it has ever felt like an obligation to us. Like we've always wanted to do it. In terms of like making it a paid thing, like we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to do it.
That's the best
answer.
That is so pure and innocent.
I would have put that as B because that is the secondary element. Like it seems difficult and
like fracturing, like would you want like people's experience of it as well? Like the way some of this content is done, it's not like a separate. You're going to the tower of pay $5 to do an extra event type of thing. It's like
God, that is
pieces
I want
that are
that.
integrated. Like we've tried to make it feel like the stuff that's in there. Like if you were coming to the game fresh, it would all like feel like part of the world, and the ability to cut that out for people who haven't paid or whatever is actually like a really big job and not something that we're that interested in doing. Like the way it's kind of like integrated in a nice way.
Yeah, the main thing is like this stuff is just fun. We want to make this. We're making this stuff because we like making it, and we want people to play it. We don't want to see like only the people who can afford to pay an extra $1 playing it. We want everyone to play it, and
those rich
well,
1%ers.
I mean, yeah, like you said, like we're very fortunate that the game has been successful. But any game we make, we want to be able to just add stuff to and keep it going and keep it a little bit alive in that way.
It's just nice. Yeah, I mean, maintaining that living feeling is just nice as well. It's nice that the game, has these like spurts of like time to dip back in, and people are talking about it, and people are looking forward to it, and it's like it's just like a fun environment to make stuff in.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
Vetifer wants to know, are there any Easter eggs in the game that haven't been discovered yet? No spoilers, of course, but
there was some stuff that like that we had hidden pretty well, and that like data miners had like found the art for it, and then they thought that you couldn't actually get in there yet. And then eventually people did find it. It had, I think. I mean, I won't say 100% of everything in there has been found, but
the bulk of it has.
Yeah.
And some, people are just going to find through data mining and not through the complex riddles that exist in the game.
I found a room adjacent to Deep Nest that has a glowing sigil in it after a very difficult jump. I think you know which room I mean, hopefully. There's something that is to that, right?
They just looked at each other, shit, we forgot to take that out.
There's like a reason for that there, right? Because it just kind of doesn't go anywhere, and then you leave that area.
Is this the cryptic tablet?
It's just kind of floating in the air, kind of glowing. When you open the room, it's a secret wall, and then there's a thing that runs out of the room. And then you go upstairs. Yes. Okay, you know what I mean now.
Well, yeah, we do. We're not done with that just yet.
Okay, so, thank you, because I looked for a very long time.
No, it's just a tease for now.
Okay, fair enough.
Hunk of Dunk. He says, where exactly did the design for Hornet come from in the sense of it being simultaneously a recurring antagonist, but also driving you toward the bulk of the plot?
Additionally, are you surprised by the amount of awkward, weird, sexy Hornet fan art that I discovered on Google when making thumbnails for the series?
William has shielded me from all of it. I refuse to look.
Nah, Ari can't see this one. Delete.
Yeah, he's doing a good job so far. All I've seen is a big butt version, and I can deal with that one.
Oh yeah, there's like a Marilyn Monroe version. I think you saw that one as well, maybe.
Oh,
that was sort of innocent.
Yeah, that one was all right. There's like a spectrum of
he's keeping me pure.
Yeah.
Smart.
Well, it was really early, right?
Yeah.
Like first week or so, or second week of the Kickstarter. Like,
yeah, as a character, her like full integration into the narrative happened throughout the development, though.
Yeah, I mean, she was always planned to be like your kind of like a rival / guide, like someone that you'd encounter multiple times.
Yeah.
But like the exact nature of that changed a fair bit.
That's true. It's kind of nice. She ended up as like I mean, it's probably a bit on the nose, but she's kind of a white rabbit style thing, like that Alice in Wonderland, chasing her towards your goal. And if you follow her path completely, she's the one that leads you towards the extra ending, which is kind of her full purpose. She did get more integrated, I think, as we went. So ultimately, even right near the very end, we were putting extra encounters with her just to fully flesh out that story and make her fully connected to the world.
Yeah, and it's that sort of thing, like we said, where we needed her to be in a few places and like give you like certain bits of information. So then working backwards from that, we said, well, why is she doing it? Where else does she need to appear, and what else does she need to do in order to for that to actually make sense and be cohesive. So she ended up being threaded through really, explicitly.
Great. Cool. All right, and then there is the quintessential closer question here. What's next for Team Cherry? What do you guys got coming up?
What's content packs for a while?
So 3 of them.
Yeah. Also, we're just working you're doing bits and pieces of working with translation and the switch port and stuff. We're not doing the switch port, but we've got someone else here in Adelaide doing it. But we're sort of managing those bits and pieces.
Yeah. We actually have the playable Hornet content, which is our biggest thing, which is not part of those 3.
So there's another
content packs.
There's a separate bit of extra content, which is not a content pack. Which is during the Kickstarter, we promised that it'd be a playable like Hornet. A way to play as Hornet, so we're working on version of that.
And then we have a list of like 10 other games that we'll just pick the one at the top of the list and do that, and that'll be fun.
That's the plan.
Do you have any sort of like direction you're thinking of going at this point, or are you more focused on getting these content packs out at the moment and just handling your business right now?
We're taking a bit of time on like this on the world of Hollow Knight. We'll be on that for a little bit, and then we've got like a pretty good idea of something that we might like to do next, which is something that sounds like it'd be pretty fun to work on.
Yeah, it does, and probably like we can't really say explicitly what it is, but we can maybe just say that the connecting element is lots of weird characters and probably too much content and
Hollow Knight MOBA.
These
MOBAs are too abstract for us.
Great. Here's the question Ryan doesn't want me to ask you guys. Fish and chips.
We have these. We're all talentless, uniquely talentless, but talentless. So we come up with these in-jokes, and then outsiders who actually have learned skills that we could make productive content with come on, and we
ask them these questions.
We ask them how they eat their fish and chips, and
but I am curious.
Okay.
Do you eat your fish and chips with your hands or with a knife and fork?
Whoa. Oh.
With the chips, you can eat with your hands.
Yeah, chips. Don't knife and fork your chips.
There we
That
go,
would be
yeah.
ridiculous.
But do you knife and fork the fish?
Yeah, it depends. If you're sitting down and you got a knife and fork, I'd probably use it. If you're sitting on the beach and you just got like a thing, or if it's like actually been like cooked as like into shapes that are like finger bits.
Yeah, what's the context here? If you're in like a restaurant, I'm not just gonna grab that fish. But,
Let's say you're in polite company, you're with family.
Right.
What are you gonna do?
All right. If it's like a down meal, then I mean I'd use my knife and fork on the fish.
you might have to. In that
No one's ever asked for context before.
Yeah, no, these are very well thought out answers. I appreciate that a lot.
Trying to.
Yeah.
In order to answer, you have to replay the scene in your head. So I have to be like, all right, well, where am I?
Yeah,
who's
yeah,
next?
yeah.
You've never watched an LSS.
It's for
We're
the
all
best.
about zero context is the point. Great. All right. Thank you for tolerating that.
Yeah. It's,
Great. All right. So let me go ahead and take that into our weekly Ask Roundtable segment. Ask Roundtable, a weekly segment where your questions into roundtableyt@gmail.com. And Team Cherry's going to join us for this one because it's weirdly pertinent to them. Trevor sends in a question. He says, "Hey guys, still enjoying the podcast a bunch? Thanks, buddy." Says over the past.
I like that.
I
didn't expect to still be enjoying it here 3 years in.
When this
but-
started, I thought 5 weeks max.
I totally got that too, man, as soon as I read it. Over the past few years, there's been a number of good games that have been developed by one or two person teams. Do you think it's easier now to create games with the amount of tools that are readily available, or do you think it's harder with the amount of games that are released? And also, what are some of your favorite games that have been created by one or two person teams? Now, I'm not going to know, I don't want to particularly name any here, but might be a favorite or two. But yeah, there's the question. Do you guys, let me start with Team Cherry on this one, actually, of course, again, because it's pertinent to you guys in particular. Do you feel it's easier to create games now with the amount of tools available? Or do you think the amount of folks that are competing in the industry makes it maybe harder by comparison?
yeah, it's kind of two separate things. Where like you probably say it's definitely easy to make games,
Right.
Or like leaving aside the question of like releasing it and like the response and stuff, making it is definitely easier. Yeah, I don't know. Like we're not. I mean, this is the first game we've released as well, so we're not like super up on the market and stuff.
There are certainly a lot of openings, though, I would think, and a lot of tools that are really.
I think yes, no.
So, well, I was just going to mention, obviously, you've got Game Maker and things like that. You've also got RPG Maker, which you can buy through Steam and then make a game and release it. And I mean, if you made a good solid RPG in RPG Maker, there's absolutely no reason why that wouldn't do well on Steam.
Always
To the
Sometimes
Moon.
Monsters is a
Yeah,
good example.
and that was good. And that To the Moon, I remember, which was like a little narrative game, and that did, people really quite like that. And then there's always really simple things like you could use Adventure Games Studio these days, and make point and click games, and there's a dedicated audience.
There's a lot of
for
like
that.
niches. Like
Yeah.
you find a lot of the stuff that there's heaps of stuff coming out, but the types of games that kind of rise up out of that are probably the same games that would have risen up out of it 5-10 years ago. And that like there's like a specific look to them. There's like a specific niche that they've filled that is like in some way underserved or something like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's
In
the
conclusion,
answer. Yeah.
go for it. Yeah. It's a great. I mean, it's a great
Worry about
time.
the first part, like
Yeah.
something interesting, and then
I think like you mentioned, it is a two-part question. There's two different things to consider here. The tools being made more readily available, of course, is going to make it a lot easier for anybody to get their hands on the tools and make the games. It's a much easier time now. You mentioned that you guys haven't really paid too much attention to the market recently, but I think it's pretty easy to notice that there's a pretty heavy influx in just the overall quantity of games being put out at this point. 2017 in particular, not just like indies, but major releases. It's a deluge of stuff. It's wild.
Yeah, well, you can release. There's also a lot more diversity. Like it seems like now on Steam you can release a visual novel, and there is obviously an audience that's now appeared for that. And that probably 5 years ago that really wasn't the case. You can make. probably make like a text adventure now, and if it's a great text adventure, you'll have people to buy it because there are, you know, plenty of people that would remember that kind of genre fondly.
Yeah, and probably like the market is expanding as well. And like people are more like, I don't know, willing to kind of branch out into different stuff as well.
Yeah. I think Steam is like just legit evidence that it's easier to make a game nowadays because every day there's just hundreds of games launching.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you.
Did the word quality slip in there at all? Because I didn't say quality games.
No,
I just said,
90% of communication is nonverbal, like
did my body language say quality, Ryan?
Well, it was like there was the world's slightest bit of drama on Twitter this week about there was the post that was like, see what you've done, game journalists. You've made so Unity's a bad word, and there was a snapshot of the Steam forums where the guy was like, honestly, it's made in Unity. That's all I need to know. I
saw a few tweets and I just didn't understand what the hell was going on. So I didn't understand. I thought the Unity thing, there was a few joke tweets about that. I thought there was a big joke happening on Twitter, but I didn't know it was actual drama.
There's a great reply. It was like a picture of a man standing in a burning room, and it's like, RPG Maker devs, it's always been this way.
Well, you guys, I mean, Hollow Knight was made with Unity, so it's kind of a weird little note to make there too, right? Based on that conversation.
I think it's probably it's funny, the what we made the prototype of Hollow Knight in Stencil, which is like a simple game maker thing.
Right.
When I was looking up stuff, to learn, because that has it's similar to Unity, but at a lower level where it's got a really low barrier to entry. So a lot of people make games with it, and then kind of flood. It was like Newgrounds at the time. So suddenly there's 100 really low-level games made with Stencil. So that's so then in people's minds, when I was researching it, people were saying oh, you can only make bad games in Stencil. I'm looking into it, there's still good stuff made with it. It's just that anything with a low barrier to entry will always have a lot of examples that aren't so good.
Sure.
And so it's easy to remember that stuff.
And now Steam has a low barrier for entry.
Yeah.
So you get to see it there as well.
Yeah. No, I mean that's true. I'm guilty of having this admittedly no good reason negative bias towards Unity because of all the garbage Unity survival games I've forced down my own throat. So anytime I see Unity, I just get this immediate reaction of oh, it's Unity, okay, doesn't mean it's gonna be bad, this is gonna be good.
If there's really the splash screen at the start, I'll admit there's a good chance it's probably not gonna be great. Yeah. Most of the time.
I see the opposite. I'm like, thank God I can pick which resolution I want to launch this at.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about
launcher.
The made impersonal Unity
gotcha.
splash screen.
Still, there are games out there that don't look like Unity games. It's Escape from Tarkov, that amazing looking shooter that's coming out is a Unity game. And I was like, wow, they must have modified the ever-living hell out of that.
Probably a lot of the best games, or the higher level games, don't really talk much about being made in Unity. Whereas all the low level stuff have the logo at the start, and that's what sticks in your mind. Whereas the higher level professional games don't have the logo at the start or anything. You actually have to research the game to even realize that it was made in Unity.
That's true. Yeah, if it's done well enough, you're not going to know.
Stuff Ori and the Blind Forest was made in Unity.
And Inside, which was very slick.
That's completely seamless stuff. So
right. Great. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you, Trevor, for the question. Appreciate it, man. If you got a question for us, feel free to send it on over to roundtableyt@gmail.com. And I'm going to surprise Team Cherry with this one, actually. I didn't give him the primer on it, but it is time for everybody's favorite segment after their favorite segment. It's Nick's Weird Games.
Oh, okay.
That's right. We're going to forego the theme song this time around due to the lack of preparation. But this is our weekly segment, Nick's Weird Games, where Nick is going to go grab a game from his catalog of many weird games. We're going to try to guess what it is based on clues, for, developer, year of release, platform of release, things like that. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and join in with us. And close your chats.
Weird. No theme song. Just going right into it. It feels wrong, doesn't it?
A little abnormal.
So wrong.
Well, I just happened to accidentally pick one that might actually be right in the wheelhouse of Team Cherry's time spent knowing the industry.
Nice.
I said you develop stuff around the 360 time period, so we're doing a 360 game today. Let's see. So we've got a Square Enix game. It's an RPG. And it was released in 2008. and it was also ported to Windows a year later in 2009. Single player only. It is actually developed in Unreal Engine 3.
Trash.
And it was intended by Square Enix to become a cornerstone for their worldwide strategy.
Ooh.
Sucks.
Which sounds like it would be really important and a game that lots of people have played and talked about.
Right.
However, probably not what ended up happening.
So it's not Lost Odyssey or Blue Dragon because those are too popular. But there was a time where Square Enix was like throwing games at the 360. Last Remnant was one.
Done.
Whoa!
Wow.
That's it. Nice.
Last Remnant.
Wow,
That's
dude.
the one. I didn't
take
even
a
get to
game-
do the critical reception or anything. Jeez,
You
man.
take a game from like the Mathas working at GameStop
era.
Like,
Yeah.
Well, yep, that's that.
There
You
was
got
another
it.
one as well for the 360 that I'm trying to remember. Shit.
Chat also nailed it immediately.
Nice. Wow, damn.
Archon Zach, first one, nailed it. Well
That
done.
normally goes a little longer. That was
Yeah, we usually take a few, like 5-10 minutes to talk this through.
man. Did you play this one, Nick?
Actually, you might be able to tell. Still sealed.
Still sealed, yeah.
Oh shit. Let's find out. eBay.
Oh yeah, you gotta
Still
know.
sealed. Last
Yeah.
Remnant.
It's
Their favorite segment after their favorite segment after their favorite segment. How much is Nick's Weird Game worth?
Let's see.
Last Remnant
I
is on Steam, I'll have you know, so you
Yeah.
might not get the
You can get like a factory
It's-
sealed $22.
It's no London 2012. We'll put it that way.
Didn't they have crazy performance issues on Xbox 360 anyway?
Last Remnant?
Yeah, I think so.
Nick wouldn't know. He didn't take it out of the wrapping.
Yeah, I didn't play it, so.
how wild would it have been if it had actually been a game that you worked on the cutscenes for?
Oh, God,
that
yeah.
would have been like
Blow my
Ouroboros.
mind.
Yeah, if only. Square Enix, talk to us.
Can you name drop a few of those that you worked on? Maybe a few of the big ones during that era?
No, if I kept going, it gets too embarrassing. Yeah, they're best left buried.
All right,
I
all
think.
right.
Fair enough.
The other game I was thinking of released the same year for Xbox 360, Infinite Undiscovered.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, we already
that.
did that in a prior show, actually.
Did we?
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Square Enix 2008, Xbox 360. Pretty mediocre.
Hard to forget the name of that one, though, man.
It's a weird one.
Yeah, that's a Star Ocean, what's it called?
Recklessness and faithfulness and abandonment and
Pridefulness and Abandonment.
Kingdom Hearts 2.8, Dream Drop Distance, Remix, Final Chapter, Prologue.
exactly. Oh boy! All right, well, that'll do it. That'll do it. Hey, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us for another episode of Roundtable Live. And thank you very much again, Team Cherry. This was a lot of fun. Really appreciate you guys being
Yes,
here and
thank you.
accommodating.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Despite not nasty time zone differences, we appreciate you guys being here.
It's all right. It's not too early for us now.
Yeah.
Like
No.
11.
Although this is the earliest we've got up in
On the
about
Saturday,
3 months.
yeah. We're actually supposed to be at a convention right now, but so we've just got one of our friends standing at our booth.
Oh, really?
You picked the right podcast to skip it for.
Yeah, geez. Yeah, we'll let you get back to that then. Is there anything in particular? Of course, there's the content pack to Hollow Knight coming out. Is there anything in particular you guys want to plug, like a website, anything like that?
Sure. Yeah. You can go to teamcherry.com.au. You can go to, which is, you can go to hollowknight.com.
Mm-hmm.
Team Cherry Games on Facebook. On Twitter. There's a Facebook. Sure, we update that stuff.
Buy the game on Steam.
Yep.
On Buy the Game Forever.
Yes. Anywhere on GOG or
Yep,
Humble
on GOG,
or
Humble, yep.
Yep.
Great.
That's us.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, again, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you being here. And thank you all for watching as well. Want to send a big thank you, of course, at the end of the show here to our Patreon supporters over on patreon.com/roundtable. That includes Julian Avelsgaard, Jonathan Graham, Scotty119, Ricky Grist, Peter Sunnison, Leah Rokema, Ellis Spice, John Kalchik, O Thomas Games BR, Jakar Sampson with the dance number, Kolnar, Sanoa, Jamie Tinsley, Joseph Boss, Penn Gillette, Michael Bush Larson, Talks to Wall, TJ Majesty, Chaos Never Gonna Run Around and Desert You Theorists. I gotta tell you, this this guy has been Rick-rolling us through the course of like 80 weeks or something here. He's been changing his name every single time. It's great. Colby Klein, Greenlight, Orange Saltzman, Eric Schooley, Brizzlebrit, Positron, Mitscara, Mediocrities, Justin, Smurfette, Logan Ray. Thank you guys so much for continuing your support over on patreon.com/roundtable. Thank you again, Team Cherry, for joining us, and thank you all for being here. We'll be back next week. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.